Today I am delivering this message to you not as a politician, but as a soldier, a servant of the people, and I bring with me a message. Not just any message, but one from a man who gave his life for Africa, Patrice Lumumba. When I first heard his words, they shook my soul. Every sentence felt like it was rewriting the path of my life. And now I bring that message to you, not just for me, but for all of us. Listen with your full attention.
We'll elect our governors. We'll have our ministers. That will happen, but they are not bothered. After we have elected them, you'll then see them sending their arrows ahead. You'll see Bill Gates come and meet your president. You'll see Tony Blair come and meet your president. You'll see Macron come and meet your president. You'll see all of them. And then they will never admit, but they'll be told, if you want money in agriculture, behave this way. If you want money in this area, behave this way. They will never tell that to the Chinese. They will never tell that to the Indians. They will never tell that to the Vietnamese. They will never tell that to the Koreans, but in Africa, they tell us. That is why, as I speak to you now, under this new scramble, the IMF and the World Bank are back, telling you who to hire in your universities, what to sell and what not to sell. It is a sad situation. So today, as I look at Africa in that new scramble, the Chinese are here. I hope that this institution was not built by the Chinese. The Turks are here. The British are here. The French are here. The Qataris are here. The Americans are here. This time round, they are so subtle that we don't even recognize them, but they control us. What are we going to do about it? In order to develop, we must do something. And if we don't do that thing else, you who have been trained in this institution, you have traveled the world. You have traveled Nigeria. There are two things that you can do with your traveling. You can marvel. Says it is great in China. You can marvel. You can wonder or feel pain. I'm urging you to feel pain. To feel pain for the continent of Africa, and in your own way, when you go out there, go and do something about it, because it has also been demonstrated that it can be done. I've traveled across this continent and I've seen that development is possible. I was in Rwanda before 1994. I was in Rwanda in 1996. Genocide. 1 million dead. Its obituary written. Will never rise, they said. You go to Rwanda now. They are demonstrating that it can be done. Go to Kigali now. See what they are doing in the health sector in their own small way. See how they are collaborating in the area of mobile telephony in their own small way. It can be done. I've been to Botswana and I've seen what they are doing in their own small way. I've been to Mauritius, see what they are doing in their own small way. And they do not have the resources that other countries have. They do not have the resources that the Democratic Republic of Congo has. And I'm giving this example to say that indeed it can be done, and it can be done within the continent of Africa. So what we must do is to begin to pull together. You know, as I've been sitting and listening, I was also struggling to have internet in this room. And every effort was being made to connect me to internet. And all those efforts failed. Why? Because we are in an era of the Internet of Things, we are in an era of nanotechnology. It cannot be right that in Africa's largest economy, in Nigeria, I do not have internet at an institution that deals with security. You get the point that I'm trying to make? It cannot be right.
Mr. Lumumba, I have received your message. Your words reach me not only as a letter from the past, but as a mirror held up to the present. I stand before the people of Burkina Faso, and indeed before the entire African continent, to say I hear you and I understand. You warned me, beware of foreign influence after elections. You warned me of the smiling faces behind closed doors, of the polished suits and official visits, of the money offered not as help, but as a leash. You Mr. Lumumba, I have received your message. Your words reach me not only as a letter from the past, but as a mirror held up to the present. I stand before the people of Burkina Faso, and indeed before the entire African continent, to say I hear you and I understand. You warned me, beware of foreign influence after elections. You warned me of the smiling faces behind closed doors, of the polished suits and official visits, of the money offered not as help, but as a leash. You named them, Gates, Blair, Macron. You spoke the truth because these names are not just men, they are symbols of a system that believes Africa can be bought, influenced, manipulated, a system that sees our elections not as the voice of the people, but as an opening for control. I have seen what you described. They come to our capitals days after we have been chosen by our people, not to congratulate us with sincerity, but to measure us, to test our obedience, to ask without asking, will you play by our rules? If we say yes, the aid flows, the investments arrive, the NGOs expand. But if we say no, if we raise our heads and say we will serve our people before serving global interests, then the threats begin. The rumors, the media campaigns, the isolation. Mr. Lumumba, what you faced decades ago, bullets, betrayals, and foreign hands hiding behind local traitors, has evolved. Today, it is not always assassinations with guns. It is assassinations of character, assassinations of sovereignty. It is the quiet control of our economies, our education, our health systems, through conditional loans, through dependency disguised as generosity. And you are right, they do not treat China this way. They do not give India lectures before deals. They do not question the sovereignty of Vietnam or South Korea. But we are always expected to justify our independence, to explain why we refuse a policy, to apologize for rejecting a contract, to defend ourselves for choosing African solutions to African problems. I say enough. Burkina Faso did not shed blood for symbols of freedom. We did not rise up to replace one master with another in a better suit. We are building a nation that looks inward for strength, not upward for approval. We are saying no to the illusion of partnership that is really control. We will accept friendship, yes, but never domination. They tell us, if you want money for agriculture, follow our model. If you want infrastructure, give us access to your minerals. If you want peace, don't challenge our presence. But we are not fools. We have learned the language of power, and we understand what it means when someone says help but means ownership. My people are poor in currency but rich in dignity, and I would rather walk slowly on a road we build ourselves than ride fast in a vehicle we don't control. To the foreign powers who believe they can still dictate our path after elections, I say this: you are no longer dealing with the Africa of yesterday. We are not your experiments. We are not your buffer zones. We are not your markets to dump failed policies or surplus goods. We are a continent with its own voice, and we are reclaiming it. Yes, we welcome cooperation. We welcome trade, investment, exchange of knowledge, but only when it respects our sovereignty, only when it lifts us without chaining us, only when it is mutual, not manipulative. Mr. Lumumba, I thank you for the warning. I thank you for standing with your head high even when the world tried to crush you. Your betrayal and murder were not just an attack on you, but an attack on the idea that Africa could be free on its own terms. But today, that idea lives again in the villages and cities of Burkina Faso, in the hearts of young people across Mali, Niger, Guinea, and beyond. We know the price of defiance. but we also know the price of silence, and we are no longer willing to pay it. In your honor and in the name of every African who chose resistance over submission, I make this promise: we will not be puppets. We will not wear our independence as decoration while taking orders behind closed doors. We will be free, truly free, even if that freedom costs us comfort, aid, or approval. The days of quiet obedience are over. The time of African dignity, unapologetic, uncompromising, unbought, has begun. Thank you, Mr. Lumumba. Your message lives on, and we, the sons and daughters of your dream, are ready to fight, not just to defend it, but to fulfill it. Mr. Lumumba, your words are not echoes from the past. They are warnings that still ring loudly in the present. You speak of unequal treatment of a continent dictated to, pushed, pulled, and cornered into obedience in exchange for aid. And you are right. Africa is treated not as a partner, not as an equal participant in the global family, but as a child constantly in need of supervision, correction, and instruction. This is not development, it is domination wearing the mask of generosity. I have lived this reality, just as you did. They speak to us in the language of diplomacy, but their tone is always paternal. They claim to support our progress, but their support comes with strings that wrap around our sovereignty. We are told how to reform our education, which crops to plant, which companies to favor, which economic models to implement, and when we question these prescriptions, we are labeled as unstable, dangerous, or radical. But radical is simply what they call anyone who refuses to bow. We are expected to accept conditions that no self-respecting nation would tolerate. They demand transparency from us, yet hide their own motives behind institutions and contracts. They tell us to fight corruption, yet they are the ones bribing our elites, manipulating our elections, and stealing our resources through legal terms they themselves drafted. They say they want peace, but only as long as that peace protects their interests. You asked why China, India, Korea are never treated the same way. I have asked myself the same question many times. These nations have walked the road of poverty and colonization, yet when they rose, they were met with recognition. Africa, even when it rises, is met with resistance. Why? Because we are not expected to define our own success. We are only allowed to succeed if it fits within the framework drawn by others. The moment we step outside that frame, we are punished through sanctions, withheld loans, diplomatic isolation, and even orchestrated instability. I have watched leaders try to follow their prescriptions. I have seen governments bend backwards to comply with every rule and still remain in debt, still remain dependent, still remain poor, because the system is not designed to make us independent. It is designed to keep us manageable. Aid is not always a tool of kindness. It is often a weapon of control. A nation that feeds you can also starve you when you disobey. They do not impose this on China, because China has power. They do not impose this on India, because India has leverage. They do not impose this on Korea, because Korea has allies. But Africa, fragmented and divided, remains easy to push and pressure. And so the cycle continues, a cycle you saw begin, and that we are still fighting to break. But I say this with clarity, Mr. Lumumba, we will not live forever under the shadow of their expectations. We have reached a point where our people are tired of being told how to live. They are tired of electing leaders who become messengers for foreign capitals. They are tired of pretending that partnership means equality when in truth it means dependency. The future we are building is not one where we beg for a seat at their table. It is one where we build our own. We will engage with the world, yes, but on terms that protect our dignity. We are not hostile to the world, but we are no longer willing to be treated as the weakest in the room. We know our value. We know the strength in our land, in our youth, in our cultures, and in our history, and we will rise with our heads held high, even if that means walking alone. The time of double standards is coming to an end. If they will not treat us like equals, we will act as equals, regardless. If they deny us their respect, we will command it through action. If they refuse to share power, we will build power from within. The age of silent submission is over. You told the world once that history would one day speak. Today we are that voice. We are the proof that the fire they tried to extinguish in you is burning brighter than ever. We are not afraid of being denied aid. We are afraid of denying ourselves the chance to be truly free. And that fear is greater than anything they can threaten us with. Mr. Lumumba, your life was taken because you refused to kneel. But your defiance planted seeds across this continent. I am one of them. And I promise you this, Africa will no longer be dictated to. Not by the East, not by the West, not by the North or the South. We will listen, yes. We will learn, of course, but we will decide by ourselves, for ourselves. And when they ask us to behave a certain way in exchange for help, we will respond with the strength of a people who have suffered enough, learned enough, and risen enough to say, we are not for sale. This is the Africa we are building. This is the Africa you dreamed of. And this time, we will not let them silence it. Mr. Lumumba, your words pierce through time with the same fire that once made empires tremble. You spoke of colonialism, of its violence and its arrogance. You fought it with your life. And yet, even after decades of so-called independence, you were right. The masters have changed their tools, not their intentions. They have removed their flags, but their grip remains. You called it colonialism. Today, we call it financial diplomacy. Technical assistance, structural adjustment, but it is the same beast with a new face. The IMF and the World Bank claim to come as partners. They wear the garments of reason, data, and reform. They arrive not with soldiers, but with consultants, not with guns, but with conditions. And through those conditions, they dictate the future of entire nations. They do not hold public office, yet they decide public policy. They do not live on our soil, yet they tell us what our farmers should grow, how our schools should run, which industries must be privatized, and which ones must die. These institutions built by the victors of history do not see Africa as equal. They see us as clients, as experiments, as problems to be managed. They offer loans, but never trust. They demand repayment, but never take responsibility. And they dare to call it support. How can a people be free if their national budget is shaped in Washington? How can a government be sovereign if it needs approval from foreign economists before it can invest in its children? How can a nation rise when every attempt to stand tall is met with formulas that were never designed for its reality? I have seen the damage firsthand. The IMF will come and say, reduce your public wage bill, and that means our teachers are fired, our nurses sent home, our civil servants humiliated. The World Bank will say, liberalize your market, and suddenly our local industries collapse under the weight of foreign goods. They will say, cut subsidies, and the price of bread, fuel, medicine shoots beyond the reach of the ordinary citizen. All of this, they tell us, is for reform, for modernization. But who defines what modern means? Is it modern to have policies written by strangers? Is it progress to make the poor pay for the mistakes of the powerful? Is it development to follow prescriptions that leave our people weaker, hungrier, and more divided? They preach efficiency, but their policies have created waste. They preach growth, but they measure it in numbers that never reflect the hunger in a child's stomach. They speak of debt sustainability, while ignoring the reality that no debt is sustainable when it kills the future of a nation. They will say, Africa borrowed too much, but they will never say that they lent too easily, too knowingly, and with full awareness that their loans would be used by corrupt elites they protected. When we suffer, they blame us. When their system fails, they revise the system, but never the structure, because the structure is designed to keep us in place. And Mr. Lumumba, let us not pretend this is about economics. It is about control. They want to control our pace, our choices, our aspirations. They want to remind us, gently but firmly, that even though the chains are gone from our wrists, they remain wrapped around our institutions. That is the modern colonial project. And it is just as dangerous, just as insidious, and just as deliberate as the one you fought. But I say this, we will not walk that road any longer. We are tired of being obedient debtors. We are tired of policies that please foreign boards but break the backs of our people. We are tired of begging for approval to invest in our own futures. We are tired of experts who do not understand our soil, our culture, our struggles, yet believe they know better than we do what is good for us. In Burkina Faso and in other parts of Africa, where the winds of dignity are rising again, we are choosing another path. One that listens, yes, but listens to the heartbeat of its own people before the opinions of distant institutions. We will work with others, but only as equals. We will take advice, but not orders. We will build alliances, but we will not trade our sovereignty for access to funds. To the IMF and World Bank, we say your era of silent domination is ending. If you truly wish to be partners, you must first unlearn your arrogance. If you want to help, you must start by respecting the wisdom and capacity of the people you claim to serve. And if you cannot do that, then we will walk without you. Mr. Lumumba, your struggle was not in vain. The chains you broke with your blood are being broken again, this time with knowledge, with unity, with courage. The new generation has awakened. We know who we are, and we know what we want. And it is not permission. It is not pity. It is not endless reform that benefits only those who wrote the rules. It is freedom, real, economic, political, and psychological freedom, the kind you died dreaming of. And I stand before you with all humility and all defiance to tell you we will not fail. Mr. Lumumba, your message on self-driven development touches the very nerve of our struggle. You remind us that the road to dignity is not paved by donors, but carved out by determination. You name Rwanda, Botswana, Mauritius, small nations by size, yet immense in their will to transform themselves. These examples are not distant miracles. They are proof that Africa's future does not lie in charity, but in courage. Not in dependence, but in discipline. Not in waiting, but in working. When I speak to the youth of Burkina Faso, I do not offer them the illusion of quick wealth or foreign rescue. I offer them the truth that if we are to rise, we must do it with our own hands. No one else will build Africa. No one else will clean our corruption, till our fields, protect our forests, teach our children, or secure our borders. These tasks belong to us, and if we refuse them, we will continue to live in the shadows of those who have never wished us to stand tall. You are right, development is possible. But too often, we are told that it can only come if we follow the path others have walked. The same path that has led us into traps of debt, addiction to imports, and the destruction of local initiative. We are trained to imitate, not innovate. We are encouraged to open our markets before we have built our industries. We are told to be global before we are even stable. But Rwanda did not rise by mimicking the West. It rose by looking inward, by demanding excellence from itself, by deciding that dignity was worth more than foreign praise. That is the spirit we must embrace across the continent. In Burkina Faso, we are not rich in gold that we control. We are not swimming in oil revenue, but we are rich in resilience. We are rich in youth who are willing to work, to sacrifice, to protect their land from foreign looters and internal parasites alike. Development is not just about GDP figures. It is about health, education, security, trust in institutions, and pride in nationhood. These cannot be imported. They must be cultivated. Our challenge is not a lack of potential. It is a lack of belief in ourselves. And that is the most dangerous legacy of colonialism. Not just stolen resources, but a broken self-image. For too long we have looked at ourselves through the eyes of others. We have allowed them to define what success looks like, what failure means, and who deserves to lead. But your voice, Mr. Lumumba, calls us to reject that mindset. You tell us that Africa has all it needs, if only we have the discipline to shape it. Discipline is not merely the absence of chaos, it is the presence of purpose. It means building institutions that cannot be bought. It means leaders who serve, not steal. It means rejecting corruption, not just in government, but in everyday life. It means putting national interest above personal gain and long-term strength above short-term applause. This is not a slogan. It is a decision we must make daily in our schools, our offices, our farms, our homes. When I look at Mauritius, I see a country that understood early that its survival depended on human development, not just infrastructure, but human beings, educated, healthy, and committed to a common purpose. When I look at Botswana, I see how natural resources can be a blessing if managed with integrity and foresight. These are not perfect nations, but they are reminders that our destiny is not cursed, only neglected. I refuse to believe that Africa is doomed to failure. I refuse to accept the narrative that says we are too corrupt, too divided, too weak to govern ourselves. That is the lie they use to justify their control. But we have evidence all around us that another Africa is possible, an Africa where leaders answer to their people, not foreign embassies, where young people create, not flee, where growth means more than statistics and progress means more than skyscrapers. In Burkina Faso, we are laying the foundations for such a future. It will not be easy. We will make mistakes, but we will own them. We will fall, but we will rise without foreign hands holding us up like puppets. Our goal is not to be admired by the West, but to be accountable to our people, not to win approval from institutions that never had our interest at heart, but to earn the trust of the farmer, the teacher, the soldier, and the student. You, Mr. Lumumba, were betrayed because you believed Africa could stand on its own. That belief terrified those who saw our continent only as a source of wealth, not as a land of dignity. Today your belief lives in us. It fuels our defiance, our reforms, our education campaigns, our land protection, our refusal to kneel before money. It is not a dream anymore. It is a responsibility. Africa's development is not a question of capacity. It is a question of will, and I assure you, the will is here. It is rising in the Sahel, in the forests of Central Africa, in the cities and villages, in the hearts of young men and women who no longer ask for permission to build, to fight, to lead. We will build this continent, one school, one clinic, one cooperative, one constitution at a time. We will make the name Africa mean strength, not sorrow. And we will do it ourselves, not because we are alone, but because we are ready to stand. Thank you, Mr. Lumumba. Your faith in Africa was not misplaced. Now it is our turn to prove you right. Mr. Lumumba, your voice reaches the ears of a generation that stands at the crossroads of pride and responsibility. You tell us that our educated class, the so-called elites, the graduates, the intellectuals, must make a choice to continue admiring foreign systems or to feel the weight of our people's suffering and act to end it. This is not just a suggestion, it is a challenge, and I, as a son of this continent, as a soldier of its dignity, as a servant of its people, accept that challenge without hesitation. You see, admiration is easy. It is comfortable to sit in air-conditioned classrooms and praise how efficient the West is, how advanced Asia has become, how stable other nations appear. It is easy to quote foreign thinkers, to wear foreign suits, to speak foreign tongues and mistake that for enlightenment. But what good is knowledge if it does not liberate your people? What value does education hold if it teaches us to abandon our own realities? Our universities produce brilliant minds, but many of them are trained to seek escape, not impact. We study abroad and return only to criticize Africa from a distance, or worse, we never return at all. We become specialists in describing our problems, not in solving them. We become fluent in English and French, but silent in the languages of our own people's pain. We write reports for donors and policies for NGOs, while our villages remain in darkness, our youth drown in unemployment, and our mothers walk miles for water. This is not what education was meant for. Education should sharpen our weapons, not soften our resistance. It should open our eyes, not blind us with illusion. If we are truly learned, then we must carry our people's burdens on our shoulders, not walk above them on imported platforms. The real leaders of this continent are not those with the most degrees or the longest resumes. They are the ones who cannot sleep while their people suffer. The ones who build with little, who resist even when alone, who create hope where there is none. That is the kind of elite Africa needs, not one that imitates others, but one that dares to define its own path. Mr. Lumumba, you paid the ultimate price because you chose action over admiration. You refused to bow to foreign models, to govern by borrowed ideals, to compromise your people's right to shape their destiny. You stood firm, and for that they removed you, but they could not remove your truth. Today, that truth demands that we, the so-called educated class, stop clapping for other civilizations while ignoring the rot within our own. We must stop glorifying systems that were never designed for us. Western democracy is not a holy scripture. Their economies grew on our blood and labor, yet we call them successful. Their institutions are built on centuries of exploitation, yet we are told to follow their example. But what is our example? Where are the African models we should be proud to name, to study, to replicate? We must build them, not tomorrow, but now. In Burkina Faso, I do not ask my people to believe in foreign saviors. I ask them to believe in themselves. I do not invite foreign think tanks to tell us what justice is. I ask our own elders, our own youth, our own history, because Africa's soul will not be repaired by ideas that come with conditions. It will be healed by those who walk its soil, speak its languages, and carry its grief in their hearts. We need engineers who will build roads, not just to cities, but to forgotten villages. We need doctors who will serve in rural clinics, not flee to Europe for comfort. We need economists who understand that a nation's wealth is not in growth charts, but in how it treats its poorest citizen. We need teachers who see every child not as a burden but as the seed of transformation. These are the builders of Africa. And yes, Mr. Lumumba, we need pain, not the pain that crushes, but the pain that wakes, the pain that makes a young graduate choose service over salary, the pain that forces us to ask, what have I done for my people? That pain must be our compass, because if we no longer feel it, then we have truly lost our way. This is my call to Africa's educated. Do not wait for perfect systems. Do not hide behind excuses. Do not serve foreign interests while pretending to love your own. If you have a skill, use it. If you have knowledge, teach it. If you have a position, use it to uplift, not exploit. And if you have influence, let it be a light, not a shadow. You reminded us, Mr. Lumumba, that knowledge without action is betrayal. Let us not betray you. Let us not betray those who died in silence, believing one day their children would rise and make things right. Let us not betray ourselves by choosing comfort over conscience. Africa does not lack thinkers. It lacks doers with vision. It does not lack plans. It lacks warriors with integrity. The time to admire is over. The time to act is here. And I, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, choose action. I choose sacrifice. I choose the long road to dignity over the short path to applause. Thank you for lighting that path before us. Now it is our turn to walk it, with our heads high, our hands open, and our hearts set on freedom.